Morning. It is just after 11:30. We've had a little bit of technical difficulties, but this is our live chat on the monthly employment numbers with Parker Harvey of Workforce Solutions. He is the senior economist here. We do have one question up on the page already. This is from Amanda. She says, "I'm curious if there are specific segments or industries contributing more than others."
Well, I mean, absolutely. This month, we had three big ones, mostly government, education, and health services, as well as construction. Now, those first two are pretty much to be expected, given the start of the school year around September or so. So that's pretty normal. Beyond that, construction seems to have a bit of a rebound from the last couple of months where we saw job losses.
She also goes on to ask if you're seeing any rebound in the oil and gas extraction sector with these most recent numbers.
Well, over the month, our big three, mining and logging, professional business services, and manufacturing, were all more or less flat, maybe slightly positive, slightly negative. But if we look at it over the past year, we're actually seeing a bit of a rebound. In fact, we're seeing a bounce off the bottom from, say, January of this year, December of last year, up to, let's say, this summer. And that really coincides with the increase in the rig count from about 400 or so in May up to about 540 or so currently.
All right. There we go. Okay, we got you back on camera correctly now. Trying to do a wide shot, and that didn't work so
Sure.
well. So for this month, what are we seeing in terms of job numbers?
Well, top line number up 14,500 jobs over the month and about 20,000 jobs over the year, and those are both very good numbers. Either way you look at it, that's the best. September is the best month for job growth that we've seen thus far in 2016.
And what was that driven by?
Again, primarily by government, education, healthcare, and construction.
All right. The government, what does that break down to?
Well, government in this context really refers to our public schools, elementary, middle, high schools, etc. Whereas when we talk about education, we're actually talking about all the other education services that are private, everything from testing centers to private schools. That's what that makes up that. But again, that coincides with the start of the public school season as well.
Okay. The construction industry that we're seeing here in Houston, has it continuing to see a little bit of a slowdown, and is that in any way related to oil and gas?
Well, it's possibly related to oil and gas. Really, what's going on here is that we're kind of late in the construction cycle. So there's been a lot, as people know, there's been a lot of construction on the east side related to the petrochemical complex boom. However, some of those projects are starting to wrap up a bit, and so if we look back over, let's say, the last 18 to 24 months or so, we're seeing a downward trend year over year, but over the month, we actually had a pretty good month.
Okay. Wholesale trade, what can you tell me about that?
Wholesale trade appears to be affected by oil and gas as well. Unfortunately, that doesn't seem to have turned around at all and is still deeply negative. But it gets rolled up in that broader category of trade, transportation, utilities, so it's kind of hard to make it out when you're looking at the top line number there.
Alrighty. Financial activities, we saw a slowdown in September. What can you tell us about that?
Well, some of that appeared to be related to real estate. So given the glut of commercial office space as well as multifamily, i.e. apartments, it's not surprising that we would see a drop-off in employment there as well.
Do you think that in looking at the numbers, and I think you told me that last month they actually revised the total number of jobs downward from 500 to negative 1,200?
That's correct.
Okay. What was the biggest drop-off that we saw from last month's numbers to from August numbers to September?
Sure. The key driver of that was professional and business services. So it was kind of disappointing to see that we went from, I believe it was around 1,600 jobs originally down to 600. So given the fact that's one of our key industries related to oil and gas, that was sort of disappointing to see. It remains to be seen, though, if that's a fluke or if that's symptomatic of something broader.
Okay. And there's been a lot of talk about revising some of the forecasts going out later, a few years down the road. What role could the low oil prices continue to or play in that?
Well, we kind of have a bit of an idea. So recently, the Texas Workforce Commission released the 10-year job projections for our region here, and essentially it showed that industries related to oil and gas are projected to decline over the next 10-year period. Now, obviously, that could change. Of course, they revise these projections every 2 years or so. But for the time being, though, it does look as though we'll be expecting negative job growth over the next 10-year period.
And is that driven primarily by the oil and gas industry? What other sectors could step in to fix that if...
Health, honestly, the ones that are population driven, for example, healthcare, education, leisure hospitality, retail, those sorts of things will continue to do well, largely because of the sheer number of people that we've added here in Houston over the last, say, 5 to 7 years.
And I don't suppose this is probably in your wheelhouse, but has the state, in the state's report, did they say that there's been any drop off in the number of people moving to Houston, or do you see that?
They haven't indicated as much. I'm trying to recall if outlets such as the moving companies like U-Haul, etc. I think they did show that numbers were down as far as people, or there were more trucks leaving. But honestly, we've added so many people that that's effectively a drop in the bucket. We're still essentially at a population around 7 million people for our 13-county region.
Okay. And we've got somebody, Desiree, she's on. Do you have a question for Parker? While we wait for her to answer that, what else can you tell me that from the numbers that we got today that you found particularly interesting?
Gosh, let's see. Let's see if there's anything else I can recall here. Not particularly. Everything that we expected to be up this month was pretty much up. Everything that we expected to be down, for example, leisure, hospitality, retail, those are typically down in September as people quit those jobs that they had over the summer and then go back to school for the fall.
Okay. And do you expect to see that rebound as we go into the holiday season, those numbers?
Absolutely, particularly the retail side of it. Leisure and hospitality more moderately so. But beginning in October, which is when you start seeing the hiring really, the jobs are being lined up actually in September, and by October they start to show up. So we do expect to see a major uptick in retail at that point.
Okay. The unemployment rate fell just a little bit. What can you tell me about how it relates to the rest of the state?
Well, we're almost a full percentage point higher than both the state and the nation at this point, and that's to be expected.
And that's just because of the drop off in hiring in the mining and extraction and...
Correct. Yes. Yeah. We've lost somewhere in the neighborhood of around, at the bottom, probably about 90,000 jobs related to oil and gas. That's probably sort of slowed down a bit. That number's probably a bit less, but nonetheless, that's what's been driving our unemployment rate going higher.
Alrighty. If you have any questions, feel free to post them into Facebook, and we'll get an answer from Parker. But this will conclude our Facebook Live chat with Parker Harvey, Senior Economist with Workforce Solutions. We'll try and have another one next month. Thank you all. Have a great day.